Welcome to another digital art lesson. Today I'm going to be drawing this sunset scene using the app Procreate on the iPad. Along with the iPad, I am using the Apple Pencil. So if you are ready, let's get started. Alright, let's first open up Procreate. Let's create a new canvas. And I think for this one, let's use A4. Here we go. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to rotate this canvas to landscape. And let's see here, we're on our first layer here. I think what I want to do is start out with a pretty dark red. Or a dark orange, I should say. Maybe about like that. Let's go to our brush library. We'll pick the airbrushing library and we'll pick soft brush. Now let's get back out of here. And let's see here. I'm going to keep my opacity at 100%. And for my brush size, I'm going to keep it about 20%. And we're going to start out and see exactly what this is going to look like, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to start here at the very top, and I'm just going to start going back and forth just like that. All right, on the same layer, let's get a little bit of a lighter orange, maybe about like that, maybe. Now I'm going to try to blend it in right there. All right, now let's go back to our first dark orange there. I'm going to put a little bit more on here. About like that. I think that looks okay. So what I want to do here is go to our magic wand up here. Let's click on Gaussian blur, click the layers button, and let's crank that up to try to get those two to cross there. I think I'm going to go up to, let's do 50%. Click it again to turn that off there. Now let's create a new layer. Now for this second layer, I'm going to put some grass down here in the bottom of our canvas. So let's go with maybe that. Maybe about like that. Let's give that a try here. Maybe a little lighter. Let's click our selection tool right up here, and I'm going to kind of highlight the bottom third of the canvas. Maybe a little higher. Let's go up a little higher here. Maybe about right there. And what I want to do is drag and drop that straight into there. And that doesn't look too bad. Now let's create a new canvas. This time, let's go with kind of a brown color, maybe. Well, maybe about right there. Let's give that a try. And for our brush, I think I'm going to use the calligraphy brush library and click the monoline brush for this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to outline our mountain range. So let's go, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit here. Now I'm going to draw our mountain range, and I'm just going to kind of there we go. I'm going to drag that in there. And what I want to do there is let's move that below our grass layer. There we go. Maybe about like that. That doesn't look too bad. So what I want to do here next is let's create a new layer right above our top layer. And I'm going to put some trees kind of here in the foreground, which will blend our grass layer and our mountains together. And I'm going to pick kind of a, maybe a little darker green for that. Maybe about, let's give that a try. And for our brush, I am going to use the organic brush library, and I'm going to pick, let's see here, I'm going to pick this cotton option. And we're going to see how this looks here. I'm going to keep my opacity at 100% and keep my brush at about, let's do 7%. And what I'm going to do here is kind of start right here at this side here. Kind of go across here like that. And I'm going to try to blend those in where you can't see the mountain range meeting the lower portion of our canvas. Alrighty, so now I think what I want to do is draw our sun in there. So what I'm going to do here is let's pick a bright color here. Since this is a sunset, let's pick this. Oh, let's kind of go with that right there and see how that looks. I'm going to go to my calligraphy brush library and go back to the monoline brush. Now I want to make sure I create a new layer, and I'm going to put that above my top layer. And let's see here, let's draw our sun about right here. Hold my pencil in place to make a perfect circle, put my finger on the screen there, and then let's do it about right there. So I'm going to drag that in right there. And if I want to move it around, remember, just make sure the sun layer is selected, and I can click this mouse button here and I can move it around. Let's move it about right there. So I want to give it a glow effect. So I think what I want to do is I want to duplicate this layer, select the bottom layer, go to our magic wand up here, and I'm going to try this Gaussian blur effect and see if I can get it to glow there. And you can kind of play with it there. Well, let's do about 50%. But I think I want to give it more glow than that. So I think what I'm going to do is go back to this top layer here. And I think I'm going to go to the magic wand again, and I'm going to click on this bloom option, click layer, and we're going to see what we can do here. Oh yeah. I'm going to kind of play with these settings here a little bit. Let's try to crank up that burn right there. Oh yeah, see, you can play with the size there, and you can really give it a lot of that effect. I like that. So let's click out of that by clicking our magic wand button. And I think what I want to do now is let's create a new layer. Let's do it this, let's go back to our grass layer, our first layer for the grass, and click on to add a layer above that layer. Now I'm going to go back to our green we used for the grass, and I'm going to kind of give the grass a little bit of texture. So what I'm going to do here is click on my brush library. Let's go back to this organic brush library. And let's pick this sword grass brush. Now I'm going to kind of experiment here and see how this is going to turn out. I'm going to start up here right below our tree line and kind of make horizontal yeah, there we go. Let's add another, actually before we do that, let's turn the opacity down just a little bit to make it look like it's in the distant. Let's try 50%. Now let's add another layer above that one. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing again, but right below that. I'm just doing horizontal swabs of my brush. Now I think I'm going to turn that layer down to, I don't know, let's try 62, 63%. So I'm going to add another one above that layer, and I'm going to do the same thing again. Same brush. Yeah, and I like that pretty good. So now let's go back to our layers and let's add another layer. And I think on this layer we can add it to the very top. So let's click on our top layer, add a new layer. And I think for this layer, I'm going to try to put some grass kind of coming up here along the border of our canvas here. So I'm going to pick kind of a darker green for that maybe. I'm going to give that a try. Let's go to our drawing brush library and let's select this little pine brush. And I'm going to see what this looks like. Yeah, let's do 40% and let's see. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make swipes up from the bottom here. I think I'm going to darken that just a little bit. And I'm going to keep those other ones in there. Doesn't make that much of a difference. Go back over it a little bit. And they can be different sizes, it doesn't matter. Yeah, I think that's okay there. All right, I think what I want to do now is add another layer. Let's add that above our last layer. And I think what I want to do is add some flowers to our grass down here at the bottom. So I'm going to pick this yellow to start out with. And I think for our brush, let me look here. Let's go back to our organic brush library. And I think I'm going to use this Paper Daisy brush. And let's see how that looks here. For my size, yeah, I'm going to keep it about 4 or 5% there. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. And I'm just going to start dabbing my pencil. Yeah, just like that. It doesn't have to be perfect. It can kind of, as long as it's kind of on a few of these here. It doesn't look too bad. And just for some variation, I'm gonna I'm gonna do this on the same layer. I'm gonna add, let's add a pink down there, and I want it to be kind of a lighter pink. Let's give that a try. I'm just gonna kind of fill in some of these gaps here. And you put them anywhere you feel that they are necessary. Yeah, I kind of like that. It looks like we've got most of it filled in there. So I think what I want to do now is I think I'm going to add a shadow to this bottom portion of the trees there. So I think the best way to do that is, let's go back to our tree layer, which would be this one right here. And I'm going to add a layer to above that one, and I'm going to turn that into a clipping mask. And since it's a shadow, I want it to be kind of dark, so I'm going to kind of pick a black. Black ought to be okay for that. And let's go to our airbrushes, and I'm going to scroll down here and pick our try this soft blend brush. Let's see here, I want it to be kind of small, so I'm gonna try 5%. Maybe like that. And what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna kind of turn it this way, and this is just to help me do this and see what it looks like, but I'm gonna start down here. Now let's lower the opacity. I don't want it quite that noticeable. And just kind of color down here along the bottom, and if you notice, it's only coloring on the bottom of the trees. And if it's too dark here at the end, I can go in there on that layer and I can lighten up the opacity on that entire layer, so I'm not going to worry about that. Yeah, let's see if we can play with that opacity just a little bit. Let's try 70%. Let me see how that looks. That looks okay. So I think what I want to do now is to kind of give the mountain a little bit of highlights from the sun to make it look like the sun is shining on the mountain. So let's go back to our mountain range here, and I'm going to create a layer above our mountains, and I'm going to make that a clipping mask. And I'm going to go back to this yellow here, and for my brush, let's try this soft airbrush, and let me see how that looks. So what I'm going to do here, just going to kind of experiment with this here and see how that, now let's undo that. Remember to undo, just tap 2 fingers on the screen here. There we go. I'm going to lower the opacity a little bit there because I don't want it quite to be that noticeable. So let's see how that looks here. So I'm just going to play with this just for a second here. Let's see here. Let's go to our magic wand. Let's just try the Gaussian blur effect and see what that does to it. Yeah, that looks okay right there. I'm all right with that. So now I'm going to add kind of a darker shadow to this other side here. Let's turn off our Gaussian blur there. I'm going to add another layer here, and I'm going to do that underneath, or actually above our mountain layer. And I'm going to, it's already a clipping mask. It already, since we did that to the last layer, it'll be already selected. So let's go with the brown we used, but this time I'm going to darken it. And of course, I'm just going to kind of experiment with this and see how this looks. So, because I want this to be subtle. So let's give our mountain range a little bit of texture. What I want to do is go back to our mountain range, and I think for this I'm going to go ahead and let's do alpha lock, and that will only allow us to paint on the pixels already created on that layer. So I think what I want to do here is click on our texture, and I think the Currawong brush is fine. Let's go with, I don't know, let's just try this and see how this looks. So what I'm going to do here is kind of start and I think I want to do the same thing to our tree line. So let's go and click maybe this dark green right here, and maybe a little darker. And I'm going to see what this is going to look like. Now let's go back to our tree layer, which I believe, yeah, it's this one right here. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go to alpha lock, and I'm going to rotate my canvas here so I can see what I'm doing here. And I do have my opacity set to 100%, and let's try, it's kind of a smaller, so I'm going to try 4% and see. Actually, let's lower the opacity on that a little bit. Actually, one other thing, just to kind of give this, the grass a little bit of texture as well, I think I'm going to go to my, well, let's click on yellow first. Now let's go to, I only want it on the, let's see, I want it actually above this layer. And I think, let's see here. Let's look at our organic brushes one more time. Let's try the, actually let's stick with the, let's stick with this Currawong brush. And I'm just gonna see how this is gonna look if I dab some yellow inside of our grass here. So let's just kind of, actually I do not like that. So I'm gonna undo that. I'm gonna go back to our organic brushes. I'm gonna try this sword. And I'm gonna lower the opacity quite a bit. Or actually, let's keep that pretty small there. Let's just see. There we go. Just to kind of give our grass a little bit of texture. And yet, if you see, I kind of play with it a little bit just to see what I can do to give it a little bit of a, it just adds a little bit to it, in my opinion. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just kind of scattering them around here a little bit. If you like this program, like us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Until next time, thanks for watching.